Timer has started, so I guess we'll get started. We're going to talk this morning a little bit about a big deployment that we did a couple years ago and things that we've run across since. I'm Sean Kaiser. I'm the systems integration specialist for Northmont schools outside of Dayton, Ohio. Kind of the server network infrastructure administrator, I guess you could say. So this is Lucas Hall.
I'm a tech level 2. Pretty descriptive, I know. That just means whatever rolls uphill I get to deal with on the hardware side and stuff. And yeah, I do with like the higher level end user support kind of fun stuff.
So this was our original project. We replaced almost every computer that students and teachers use. At least at that point, we did the kindergarten through 8th grade level. We kind of touched the high school later. We got rid of most of, but not all of our Emacs at the time. We had a few that had to stick around for our legacy software, but you can see our warehouse. We overran it with pallets of Emacs that went off to somewhere. I'm not sure where, but it was a glorious day. And then we replaced those Emacs with MacBook Pros, 13-inch MacBook Pros. We put, let's see, I think 5 in each classroom so that, teachers could kind of have, small group instruction. And then we also did some carts of 25, so they could bring a cart in, add it to their classroom set, and have 30. The whole reason for this was to be able to start getting ready for online testing that we really started this past year. And for the most part, it went pretty well on the testing side. On the deployment side, we use Deploy Studio to lay down Munki and Puppet, which is what we use to manage our machines, install software. Since we work in our service center, which is also serves as the warehouse for the district, that was our deployment area. We had a couple folding tables set up underneath the mailboxes. We ran network cable down from upstairs. We ran extension cords and set up a little area that we could do 10 machines at a time.
How many teachers and how many students do you have in your entire district, roughly?
Entire district, we have about 6,300 staff and students.
Okay.
So of that, it's about 5,400 students and 800 or 900 staff. So it's probably 600 teachers, 500 teachers of that. Yeah. So we 10 machines at a time, and at the time the only thing we were doing different, if it was a teacher machine versus a student machine, was putting Office on the machines. And we were deploying, I think, 10 packages for our student machines. So, Adobe Reader, Flash, Firefox, Chrome. I'm trying to remember what the other ones were now, but, just basic stuff. And then staff also got Office and an Office update. So it was 10 for students, 12 for staff. And that was the same setup no matter which school the device was going to. We didn't differentiate anything in our initial deployment. When we first got started, we had never had Munki before. So we got this directive, hey, we're going to bring 1,400 machines in. We need to be able to deploy them very quickly, like 3 weeks from the time they come in until they're going to be placed in the schools. So I had to learn Munki quickly, which was good because I had already been here. And so I knew some about Munki. Got it set up, had it set up at our high school, which is where our data center is, not at our office. We were connected via, I think we had a 50 meg connection between the buildings at the time. we started that first batch of machines, and they started pulling all these munki updates, and we actually did some OS 10 updates as well during the munki run, and we're pulling it 10 machines at a time over a 50 meg connection. Not a good idea. It took all day to do the first batch of 10. And it killed our phones because we were saturating our link. Our phones ran over the same link. So people weren't very happy with us at all. So then I went back to the drawing board and I said, okay, what do we need to do to fix this? So we copied our munki repository to one of the local servers in our building. I wrote a script that runs during the pre-flight process in munki to point the machines to the server in our building, which then we, as we rolled forward, changed that so it points to the building that the device is in based on the network address. We disabled OS 10 updates, and the result we got to, from the time Deploy Studio rebooted the machine and munki started running, we were down to about 10 or 15 minutes per machine, or per batch of 10. So we went from all day to 10 or 15 minutes. So we were able to, at that point, we knew we could get all these machines done in a very quick manner. So once we started pushing them out, we decided, wait a minute, there are other setups that we need on these machines. You know, if you're a secretary, you might have different software than a teacher. Your principal is going to have some extra software and so forth. So in our help desk, we set what kind of machine or what kind of setup the machine should have in our help desk. Check a box, the pre-flight scripts, look that information up. It looks up to see which building the device is assigned to and what the setup is. Puts those together so we can have a different setup for a secretary at our high school versus a secretary at our pre-kindergarten to first grade building, which is usually more printers, just kind of differentiate that way. So that's kind of a quick overview of what we did. Some things that have changed since then. Munki 2 came out, which was a great update. Yes, in the back.
Pre-flight scripts in Munki, or where does pre-flight scripts talk about? Like, where do you put that? Is it Munki?
Yep.
Yeah.
Before you install Munki, or?
Okay, say that again.
But the pre-flight script, is that before you install Munki, or you say that in the view list, the Munki view list, or is that something that Munki's doing itself? Or
Munki will call the pre-flight script if it's there in the user local Munki folder. I pushed out the changes with Puppet, so all of that stuff. Kind of used Puppet to manage Munki, and then Munki from time to time updates Puppet. So kind of use both systems together.
So Munki is basically saying it's repository based on that pre-flight script, right?
Yeah. So what it does is it looks to see what I believe I used the broadcast address on the interface, and then there's a list within the pre-flight script to say, okay, if your broadcast address is this, you're in this building, use this server. So Munki 2 came out, which was a great update. Auto package is awesome. I've got a machine that sits back on my desk, and I tell it, look for these updates, and it'll update them or grab them. Munki Report PHP, initially we were using Munki Web Admin, which is a little clunky. So I'll get there. We started using nested and included manifests to kind of make it easier to do that. We added some new staff. And the biggest thing that's changed for us is a huge infrastructure overhaul. So we'll get through those. So Munki 2, I would imagine most people that are either starting with Munki, this is all you've ever seen. people, like when we started using Munki, it looked more like software update from 10.6, 10.7, you know, like a scroll, checkbox, no icons. So you get an App Store user interface. You can group types of installs, which is nice. So like in our setup, we've got applications, classroom equipment, so you know, different interactive projectors, document cameras, stuff like that, configurations, printers. Just kind of makes it easier for the users to be able to say, okay, I'm looking for a printer, I'm going to click on printer, and then see the list of printers. And it's easier to add and remove optional software because as you're looking at the list, you say, I want to install this, and it installs, or I want to remove it. It's not a check a box and then say update software, and kind of got people, you know, people got confused a little bit. Auto package has been such a time saver for us, especially with things like Flash updates, like yesterday. It's recipe based. There's a huge community of people that are building auto package recipes. They're out on GitHub. I have not started doing any recipes yet because everything that we use, there's already recipes out there. But it goes out and then it'll find, download, process the updates. It'll add it to Munki, or there's, you know, plugins to add it to JSS, or just install directly. If you know, you can run auto package on a, you know, your home machine and let it install the applications. I have a notification script that I wrote that runs it, and anytime things are different than normal, it'll send me an email, which is, here's an example of, you know, the list of things that we check for. And then at the very bottom, it says, hey, I downloaded the Adobe Flash, Office 2001 update, or 2011 update, and a Silverlight update. So, you know, yesterday, I'm sitting here in one of the presentations, I got an email that my machine back at home had downloaded the Flash update, put it in Munki for me. All I had to do was remote in, switch the catalogs to production, and started pushing it out. Munki Report PHP, I really like the way it kind of gives you a visualization of your environment. This is an example of one of the hardware graphs. You can see we switched probably about a year, I guess, shortly after Penn State 2 years ago, or a year ago, I guess. And it, you know, graphs out, this is how many machines we have. I'm still trying to figure out what this light green unlabeled section is, so we'll figure that one out. But you can see we've got, at this point, over 2,000 machines that we're managing through this environment. So we did the initial deployment of 1,400. Since then, we've added MacBook Air carts. We use the same workflow. It works well. We've added more MacBook Pros for our high school teachers. Again, we just boot them into Deploy Studio. We have a workflow that we call Northmont that just puts down our local users, Munki, Puppet configurations, so forth. So you can get some hardware information, you know, graphically, how many, you know, how much memory is installed on different machines. Gives Lucas an idea of, hey, we've got some hard drives that are, you know, on their way out. You can start being, you know, proactive, touch base with the users, stuff like that. And then you can also get, obviously, you want information about your applications, plugins, and so forth. So this is our Flash Player report from last night. Most of our devices, because it's summertime or in school, they're either off because they're packed away for the summer, or they're at home because they're teacher machines. So that's kind of gives you an idea of why we've got such a spread on different versions of Flash. Yes?
Is it possible in your environment, or have you considered updating your machines when they're off-site, since you do have machines that can leave your internet?
Yes. This summer we put we put a server in our DMZ that does reverse proxy to push the requests back into the Munki server internally. So, yeah. That was something I wanted to do last summer, never got around to it. This year, 2 Flash updates ago, when it became obvious it was a security update and Apple was going to block Flash with XProtect, I took the time to get the server set up.
So do you account for that in your pre-flight script?
Yes, the pre-flight script.
Contact this guy.
Yeah, if it's not a member, if the broadcast address is not an address that I know of, and it's not, let's see, there's a check to see if it can see one of our internal servers, and then it checks to see what the broadcast address is, so that if there's, we're on a 10 network, so if they're on another 10 network, it's not going to try to hit an internal server, it's going to hit the external, so yeah. It also gives us the flexibility of if we add extra IP ranges within the district, it'll fail over and just hit the master server. So this, at 10 o'clock or 11:30 last night, I looked to see how many of our machines had already updated to the Flash version that had come out 10 hours before, and we were sitting at 141. So considering that a vast majority of the machines aren't on over the summer, I was pretty happy that many had already updated that quickly. So you can also get a list of your manifests, how many machines are using, which manifests. So you can see, high school lab, we've got 242. I'm not really sure why we have 242 lab machines set at the high school, because we don't have that many lab machines in the high school, but somewhere along the line, some have gotten changed. And then, so I've got, big groups of machines at the top, and then we've got, very small, a secretary set up in one of our small elementaries. We've got 3 devices that use that manifest. We use MacAdmins. It's a great GUI to be able to manage Munki. It makes this process very, very easy of creating nested and included manifests. The key, though, is to plan it out. So I've got a whole list of manifests. I've got a default district, which is every machine in the district gets this stuff. We've got a default staff, default teacher, default student, and then default building. So if there's printers that all the machines in a building get, that stuff gets in there. And then when I create the individual manifests, so the KELC secretary machine gets everything that everybody in the district gets, everything that all the secretaries get. The office staff in that building have a printer in their area that only they get, and then a default for the building, which is all the other printers in that building. So when Munki runs, it compiles all that and pushes out that setup. Nice thing is you can add, if I want to add Flash, something we, have been doing forever, but if it's something new and I want to push it out to the whole district, instead of adding it to 100 manifests, I add it to the highest level that I can, and it makes it a lot easier. So highly recommend using included and nested manifests. Yes?
What's the level of granularity there, though? I mean, like you said, you mentioned printers and buildings, and how secretaries in primary schools are different than secretaries at the high school. So, I mean, are you talking you're creating a separate manifest for a single app. I mean, it's pretty granular.
It could be. I mean, like the KELC Office staff, I think the only thing, it's only doing one install, which is the printer that's in the front office in that in that building. So yeah, I mean, it could be a manifest with one app if there's a group of machines that need one app that's different than the others. I'll create a subgroup or a default manifest that I then include in others. So yes.
What do you do when a teacher changes buildings? Or you have to change their manifest?
Well, if you go back to the help desk back at the beginning, since Munki checks the help desk for that asset's location, when teachers change buildings, they get changed in the help desk. Their location gets updated. Therefore, when Munki runs again, it'll say, "Hey, my new home is over here, not where it was."
And then we've closed a couple buildings, and currently I don't uninstall printers. So you switch from one building to another. I don't uninstall the old printers. I do uninstall printers that we've removed from service, printers in schools that we've closed, so that they're kind of clean up after ourselves a little bit. So.
What is your help desk service?
Web Help Desk. So I wrote some scripts. Web Help Desk has an API. I'm not using that API. I actually interact with the MySQL database in the background and just pull the information out that way. So, yes.
So you have local Munki repos in each building to avoid killing your WAN links.
Sure.
Can you say a few things about how you do that synchronization?
Sure.
Are you going to talk about the upgrade at all in this?
So
we just actually moved from our Xserves for our local storage to Synology boxes throughout the district, and we have one head unit that sits at the main core. And what we actually do is we update the Munki repo on the main Synology unit, and basically there's a glorified rsync that runs on the Synology front end that then syncs that repo out to all 16 other servers. So Munki will check in with the main Munki server. It'll point it at the repo that it's supposed to be at, which is then the local one. So one change pushes out.
Good on the Synology server now?
Yeah. I would say we run our Deploy Studio and Munki repos off of those as nodes in the buildings. And I say, man, it's probably compared to the Xserves, it's like a 10 meg increase in speed. We're running quad NIC on them, so multiple machines imaging or pulling Munki are handled a lot better. So
disk units, or are you rack?
Yeah, they're the
1513.
They're the 1513, and then I forget what the
Yeah.
So you said you were running for when getting drops into the Synology?
Yeah, it's LACP teamed. Yeah.
Yeah, we did that, and then as part of that, then we upgraded, or we added links between switches so that we had, I think most places we did a double NIC or not double link from like the core down to different stacks. So.
Yeah.
Any other questions?
This is a lot of infrastructure. I'm assuming your district is overwhelmingly Mac.
Yes. Yeah, we have over 2,000 Macs, and we were
30.
talking about it at breakfast, maybe 40, 50 PCs.
Maybe. Yeah.
So, and most of those are food service, point of sale service.
We're building a new high school, and we'll have 2 labs, 25 and 20 of CAD and mod labs. So we will have those, which that's on the list to do when we get back kind of thing.
So is there any, I'm sorry if I'm derailing the thought of this, but is there any coordination, consternation, integration between the PC side of the administration house and the Mac side?
We are the administration house.
Okay.
So,
So you don't fight with each other?
No, we go. We yell across the office. No, not yet. A lot of the POSs and stuff that don't have to change, I have them frozen, like time machine, time freeze or whatever, so I don't have to worry about them. And then a lot of the other ones are local users, and then the business office is trained to back their stuff up. As far as updates go, really nothing yet. I just started a year ago. So kind of one of my ongoing goals is a little bit more of that. And I'm actually, there's a session later on today for auto package for PCs, which I'm stoked to get on. So nothing.
I'm curious to see what they have to say about that.
Yeah. So nothing for us as of yet, but 2,000 kind of outweighs the 30 in our priority list, unfortunately.
I just wondered if that one on the
Flip side, yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely something, when Lucas started, he said, okay, well, we're managing the Macs. How do you manage the PCs? And I said, well, if we need to manage them, we send somebody out in front of them and manage them that way. So that's kind of why we're looking for, some sort of free, cheap management software for them. Another big change, new staff. As Lucas said, he's been around for a little over a year. It's been amazing working with somebody new. Came in with a lot of really good experience and new ideas, and that was awesome, especially with the infrastructure upgrade. Moving to the Synology servers, which I had pushed to buy 2 years ago, but they sat on their act, fired up, waiting for somebody to do something with them. My priorities kept getting shifted to elsewhere. Lucas came in, he had some NAS experience with QNAP, right? And our boss said, all right, we really need to get moving on this, because these hard drives have been spinning for over a year at this point and doing nothing. Lucas hates it when I say that's the way we've always done it. So I've been willing and challenged to think of new ideas or buck the trend of things we've been doing to make them better. This past year, we closed one of our elementary schools. We had one of our multimedia specialists out at that school. She was retiring at the end of this year, so she transferred into our group to help us out with kind of end user support, which freed Lucas up. And I've got a slide later on of whiteboard sessions that we just did, brainstorming as we came up with stuff. So, yes, sir.
So what's the difference in tenure between the two of you? How long have you been there?
I've been there 15 years.
Okay. I'm wondering how long it takes to be in an organization before that's how we've always done it. Is the answer.
Yeah. Well, a lot of times,
Yeah.
10 years?
a lot of times he would say that in regards to why we haven't changed it, because of it's not, he wasn't ever really against it. It was
Right.
just kind of like, well, the higher ups who'd been there longer had,
It's more of a philosophical question.
yeah.
Right.
I'm getting to the point where that's how we've always done it is the answer I occasionally give because I'm no longer the new guy.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's yeah, I mean, like Lucas said, I've never truly been a no, we're not going to change. This is the way we do it, type thing. Early on we used static addresses for everything, but we only had 500 machines spread throughout the district. It was easy to do. We started getting more machines, and it's like one of my colleagues, who's now our boss, said we really should be switching to DHCP, and I'm like, yeah, we probably should, but but then as we got more and more machines, it became obvious that we needed to change. So and then obviously with deploying all this stuff, we had to be pretty flexible with how we do it.
Yeah. One example is we're a Google school, so domain, Google Drive, all that stuff for us. So I posed the question, and this was a little far out there, was why are we syncing anything locally, period? Google for Education, you have unlimited drive storage. why don't we put some PD around, hey, why don't you just back all your documents up in the cloud, and then we don't have to worry about storing it locally. And that was one of those, well, that's how we've always done it, home sync. Maybe 5 years down the road, we'll talk about it. So that was one of those that didn't really get anywhere. But the more we use it, teachers are becoming more familiar with it. Students, that's where everything goes because they have iPads. So, yeah.
So the biggest thing that's changed for us, which is kind of not anything specifically tool-wise, but we did we're actually kind of finishing up a major infrastructure overhaul. This is a picture actually from last week in our high school data center. Bunch of X-serves. We had an X-serve in each building at the elementary level and at the central office administrative building, and then our building. High school and middle school, each grade level has a server for the students. Staff in each building have their own server. Originally, the X-serve RAIDs at the top were used for the student data, so we had fiber channel switch in between, and it was clunky. Open Directory running on 10.5, which all of our X-serves are still running 10.5.8. We've never upgraded them. These are the latest model X-serves that are 6-7 years old at this point. They work. We have to reboot them every 120 days or so, but we know that, so we kind of just do it. And then on our Wi-Fi network, we were using pre-shared keys for the two networks, which we got away with for a while. Then the students figured out that the teachers had more access to the internet than they did. Somehow they got the teacher network password, started putting it on their personal devices, their iPads at the high school. So we said, okay, we've got to change how we're doing this stuff. We kind of had the benefit of, so we closed one school a year ago. We opened a new preschool through first grade building this past fall, which was a big, joint funded with the state project. And through that, we were able to get ClearPass. We're in a Aruba district on the Wi-Fi side. So we were able to get ClearPass, which wasn't something that we had been able to afford on our own, but because we had, not quite 50-50 split with the state, that was, became more feasible. So we were able to move away from the pre-shared keys. These are 3 of the brainstorming sessions that Lucas and I had as we designed all of this infrastructure. And that's been the key. There's been a lot of days where we just stand around the board, planning stuff.
Where does the balloon fit in?
Okay, so, all right, so that's so if you look at what's in the balloon, it's the word theory. And our kind of mantra is like, okay, in theory, this should work. So that theory has probably been on the board the longest of anything on there. And I'll just, when I'm like, just want to get up and walk around, I'll draw a different picture around it. So right now it has a hot air balloon because the lady who worked at the elementary and came on our staff for a year before she retired, her and her husband used to fly hot air balloons. So I drew a hot air balloon. And then underneath it, you can't read it, the caption is, it says theory because it's all just a lot of hot air. So that's the story behind the hot air balloon.
Yeah. So not only is it brainstorming, but it's a little bit of stress relief, draw pictures from time to time.
For sure.
It's kind of nice because in my office, we don't unfortunately share an office, although he sits in my office a lot as we're working on stuff. We have a floor-to-ceiling and about 8 or 10 feet wide whiteboard. So that's the top left picture is part of one of the walls in my office. The other ones are from our conference room. We have a big classroom-size whiteboard. Sometimes our coworkers don't appreciate the fact that we've taken over pretty much every whiteboard in our office area, but they understand that, the stuff we're working on is, major long-term stuff, and they, kind of, if they have to erase it, they're good about taking a picture for us, and then they send it to us, so.
Yeah, for sure. And I do have that bottom chart when we were planning out the directory and how everything is going to tie together with ClearPass. I went and I did put that into Lucid Chart afterwards. So if you're not familiar with Lucid Chart, it's a great graphing free program to just kind of put everything in there. The top left one, is still in Sean's office, and we actually have the bottom whiteboard has kind of been through this entire transition period and ongoing tiered to-do list that he'll see me. I'll literally just walk in his office, look behind the door, look at the to-do list, shut the door, and walk back to my office because it's kind of a collaborative space. That's our shared task app, if you will, right there.
So as a result of all of that, we're now at the point where we have Mac Minis in each of the buildings to replace the services that we were running, some of the services that we were running on our Xserves. NetBoot, the HCP, and we're running caching server as well. We have Synology servers that we replaced one Xserve with one Synology server. So it made it easy as we were moving data. It just went from here to there. If you want to hear more about that, we can answer questions, or when the videos come out, Lucas and I did a presentation yesterday on kind of how we did all of that stuff. We migrated, well, we didn't really migrate. We moved from Open Directory on 10.5. Now we're running Open LDAP with Samba 3 in CentOS. That wasn't how the migration worked. Oh, how the migration worked? We did not allow our users to change their passwords in Open Directory, so I knew what their passwords were, so I just created everything new. So, yeah. There are benefits to not having good security practices. That was one. There's not very many others, but that was one. So back to this slide. This was when we were trying to figure out our directory structure. We went through, gosh, I don't know how many different iterations of where is the directory going to live. Originally we talked about, okay, we'll just leave it in Open Directory on 10.9, 10.10. Then we started working with ClearPass, and ClearPass and Open Directory don't work together because ClearPass needs to be able to see the password. Open Directory doesn't expose the password, so that was out. Then we said, okay, we've got all these Synology servers. We can add Synology Directory to it, which is ultimately Open LDAP. We'll try that. So started working with that. Became pretty obvious that it was going to be very difficult to work with. So then we went to, actually I think originally we said we'll go from Open Directory to Open LDAP on CentOS. Yeah. Then we went to Synology Directory and said, no, that's not going to work. So we went back to Open LDAP on CentOS. So the final version is Open LDAP on CentOS. We're running Open Directory on a mini just for manage profiles. I know I could, manage them, create a profile, push them out with Munki and Puppet, and we may get to that point. But for now, we're just doing everything in Open Directory for that, kind of doing the old golden triangle, but with Open LDAP and Open Directory. And then 802.1x with a single SSID with ClearPass on our Aruba network. That we're differentiating if it's a district-owned device or if it's a personal device. Students bring their personal device in, log into the network as themselves. They get guest access. If it's their school-issued iPad, they get student access. So staff get staff network access no matter what. We're in the process of setting up an administrative account or administrative network So the principals, if they need to be able to get to Facebook or, something to be able to do investigations, and see what kids are up to, they'll have, kind of an extra layer of access. So, you have a question?
Yeah, so you might have kind of answered it right there, but so you talked about before there was a different staff and student SSID. So I assume that was to differentiate being able to give them access to, the teachers can get to certain websites that the students will be blocked from.
Right.
How do you manage that now?
Okay.
It's going to be, so we still have the same physical VLANs on the network, and then depending on what type of user you are, so which group you're a member of in the directory, and then what kind of device, if it's district owned or personal device, then ClearPass takes all of that together and pushes information back to the controller and says this user should be on the staff VLAN or the student VLAN.
Okay.
So
do you block certain websites, either like with WebSense or something like that?
Currently we use M86 web folder, which is very clunky. It's on the way out for us. We're going to be replacing it, I think, with iBoss. But we have it set up where all the student networks are kind of the lower in the lower range of our IP range, and then the staff are at the higher end. So we differentiate it that way on the folder. So. Starting back.
How are you differentiating the own device versus non-owned device?
Okay, so with ClearPass, it can talk to JSS, which we use for to manage our iPads. It'll actually query. So we're saying if the device is managed with JSS, then it's a district-owned device. That should work, because I don't think any kid is going to willingly say, yeah, I want to enroll my device in your network, and have more restrictions than I would normally, just be able to get a little more network access. For laptops, currently, the version of ClearPass we're running doesn't talk to a MySQL database. There's a couple updates that we need to get that we'll be doing, that we can query the help desk database, and so if it's in that database, then we know it's a district-owned device. So if it's not in either of those lists, then it's a personal device. So,
yeah. Or in the case of a teacher, if it's a teacher personal device, the fact that they are a teacher logging into a device makes it a teacher personal device. So there's like a couple layers in that, deciding on where that device goes. Whereas if it's a student unknown, it gets a completely different guest VLAN. So.
Was that another question?
You have the same question.
Okay.
And that 802.1x with a single SSID, that is for user usage. We will still have a PSK SSID for devices that are unable to use 802.1x. So we still do have a PSK out there. It's on a limited subnet, though, that can get to just what those devices kind of need to get to.
So those are things like we've got interactive projectors. Trying to think what else.
That's probably about it. It's honestly probably just the projectors that I can think of.
Yeah. So we kind of touched on this a little bit, kind of the results of doing all this infrastructure stuff. We moved all of our Deploy Studio images over to the Synology server and the Munki packages, as well as user home folders and such. So Deploy Studio, when it's doing its job, its work, points everybody to the local Synology server, just like Munki does. We downloaded a 7.1 gig 1010.1 image because that was just what we had on the server that was big. You see 36 megabytes per second versus 23.5, 36.5, 23.5. So pretty substantial increase, and that's just with one. This was before we turned on the 4 NIC trunk. Yeah. So it might actually be a little bit faster.
Right.
Right.
It'll still, yeah, Josh makes a good point. The speed will stay the same probably about this per client and only decrease as the number of clients increases over the teamed NIC interface. But we did do 5 images. We actually imaged them with 1010 through this. And I think with the Synology and the two links to the switch, I think that they were on, we had 160 meg throughput. So I mean, the images, there was 5 machines imaged within like 2.5, 3 minutes. And that is nothing to shake a stick at compared to where we were. So,
and then, the bottleneck at this point really is the machine. Spinning 5,400 RPM drives are going to be the bottleneck. I don't care what else you do, you're still limited by that. So, some things that haven't changed, we still use a Deploy Studio workflow we call it Northmont the machines, creates local users. We have our tech group account. We have a multimedia specialist account, which they're both admin accounts. It's one of those things we've always done with 2 different accounts. So we have a passwordless student account, so the kids can just log in on there to get to a browser to log into their Google account. And then we have a testing account for the online testing that's set up, disables gestures and all the other stuff that we have to do for testing to make that work. So we have 4 users. We put Munki and Puppet in their default configs, partition the hard drive, which this is another really good tip that I have. I got this at the Jamf conference, I don't know, 3-4 years ago, to partition the hard drive. So kind of figure out how much space all of your applications are, add some space for growth. Currently, we do 100 gigs for Macintosh HD, the boot partition, and then everything else for the users. The benefit of this is we can reimage a machine and not touch the user data because it's on the second partition. Deploy Studio, as it's doing its thing, builds the Etsy FS tab. So if we do reimage, it'll rebuild that file to mount that second partition on top of the users folder, which has been very nice. We don't reimage a lot of machines, but from time to time we have to, and that helps. So, yes?
I need to just clarify what you just said. When you reimage with Deploy Studio, it preserves the changes in your FS tab, or?
No, it rebuilds the FS tab. So it's just basically, it looks up the UUID for that second partition and then recreates the FS tab with that.
Did you have to script that to get it to mount/users?
There's a script that builds that FS tab, and then when it reboots, then it'll use that FS tab. So, yeah. And I've got that script up in my GitHub, which there's a link at the end with slides and some other stuff. So, and then we also named the computer from the help desk.
If you're skeptical about the partitioning thing, like coming from the help desk side of it, like if the user comes in and they've like worked their OS side of the disk, literally just reimage and it's back to them. I don't have to worry about user data. It's an awesome thing. If you're not doing it, I highly recommend it. I said maybe 3 times I've actually had to unpartition and repartition a disk to help create, fix some of the issues that were with it. But past that, I haven't had any issues.
How are you relinking the user account with the home folder?
When they log in, it creates a mobile home for them.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So that's kind of where we're at right now. Some things that are on our list of things to look at. Can't remember if it was last week or 2 weeks ago. Tucanoes released Proximity D to kind of do some beacon-enabled management on the OS 10 side. So I want to look at that. Possible uses, we have meeting rooms around the district where teachers, they'll have all the 4th grade teachers from around the district come in for an all-day meeting. one of the questions that always ends up on our plate is, hey, we need to print. There's a printer in the meeting room. Can you add it? So the solution is currently that printer is an optional install in Munki for all staff machines. But that's something they have to go in and do. So one of the ideas I have is put a beacon in that meeting room. Proximity D sees that, and then it installs that printer. When they leave, it uninstalls the printer. And then, potentially using it for testing environment for the student computer, so they can be locked down. What we did this year was all the elementary kids came to the gym in their building, and we did all of our testing in that area. So instead of having a testing user, I could theoretically, maybe, I'm not sure, have profiles that when they're in that testing area, it installs the profiles to limit the access to the machine. But then when they take them back to the classroom, it takes back to full functionality.
Wouldn't that be more fun and easier to do with network location?
Yeah, I mean,
based on a VLAN rather than based on some Bluetooth thing.
Yeah, I mean, it could be network based. So yeah, not sure. So other things we want to do is look at BSTP, Pi, and Imager to potentially replace Deploy Studio. Popine has been working on BSTP, BSD Pi. Graham Gilbert, who also did Sal, that was here last year, has built Imager as a Deploy Studio replacement. So, just the idea of moving away from having to have Mac Mini servers sitting in the buildings just to do a couple of small things. Problem is, caching server, I don't know of anyone that's working on building caching server, or if there's even a way to build caching server to run on Linux that we could do, something like that. So,
what do you want to cache with?
Caching server for iOS updates and apps, yeah. So like right now, a group of our coworkers are setting up 500 iPads for next year's freshmen. And they're going through and, installing the apps and so forth. So I've got the Mini in our office, in our building, set up with caching servers. So it's, there's 33 apps or whatever that they're pushing out to each of the iPads. Instead of having to download all 33 from Apple, it just pulls it from the local caching server. So.
Pepine did a talk, I believe it was yesterday, on BSD Pi. And if you guys went, if you didn't go, it was really good. And I encourage you to check that out later and check his project out, because that shows a lot of promise for moving away from the minis.
Yeah. And then, to be able to run that in a Docker container or
natively on Linux.
Natively on Linux or on a Raspberry Pi.
Yeah, he demoed it with a Raspberry Pi, yeah.
So lots of different options there. Then I also want to look at Sal. I saw it last year, but I haven't really looked at it too much. I don't know that it's going to help us out very much, but it's something I want to look at. So back to the original question: are we still nuts? Yeah, we are. I'm not sure that I would say we're nuts from the deployment standpoint as much as all the things that we've done since. The infrastructure overhaul that we did to try to do it at mid-year, midstream, changing 14 or 15 years of infrastructure that I had built previously, all in about 9 months.
Yeah.
That was pretty crazy, but it's working pretty well. So that's what we've got. If you've got more questions, or
we're starting a similar project to this on a much larger scale. I'm wondering what is the role of Puppet in that?
Sure. Okay. The role of Puppet, what we're doing is pushing out some scripts that I don't want to package up and push out with Munki. I make sure that the launch daemons and launch agents for Munki are running. Trying to think. They're really, at this point, Puppet's kind of left over from before we were running Munki because we were doing application and package installers with Munki. So it's kind of just there. We've used it. There have been times that I've messed up the pre-flight scripts for Munki, so I can push them back out with Puppet. Just kind of maintaining scripts and stuff like that at this point. So good.
Do you use Munki Auto at all?
No, we do not. Up until last year, I had never heard of it. I saw Steve Uroff when he did his presentation, and I thought, okay, is this something that we could do? On the staff side, we probably could do, it might work in the staff side, but we want the student machines to all be the same. So we're, still do the, kind of catch-all manifests for those. So.
How many people are on your staff?
So bottom tier end user first go to. We have a multimedia specialist, a librarian, essentially, in all the elementary schools. We have more of a designated tech person at the middle school, and we have a designated tech person at the high school. She's ACMT certified, like she's Apple certified, and then we have a quarter time. I call him quarter time. He's a retired teacher. He helps her out a lot when he's not in Florida. And then it's myself, my office mate. We're kind of the level 2, and then Sean is network and systems. And then that's it as far as tech goes. We have somebody in the curriculum side that's kind of in our crew that does a lot of the management of people and accounts and all that kind of stuff.
All right.
Cool.
Slides, and I've got a Google Doc with a link to my GitHub page, a link to the session I did 2 years ago with far more information about the rollout on the Google link there. So feel free to come up afterwards, ask questions if you've got them. Those are our Twitter names. If you feel free to tweet us if you're on Twitter.
Yep. Sweet.
All right.
Thanks.
Thanks.